Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Retirement Radio. I'm your host, Kyler Fiesel. Today's episode will be focused on the importance of saving for a successful retirement and be targeted towards our younger listeners. To gauge our listeners' prioritization and knowledge about retirement, we conducted a retirement survey over the course of 2 days for listeners both young and old. We asked some basic questions like, have you given any thought to retirement? And do you know what a 401k is? 48% of our listeners responded that they were aware of what 401ks were and were able to explain them in depth. 90% of these listeners explained a 401k as a, quote, tax-exempt payroll deduction that goes into an investment account and is able to be deducted when you retire. We then asked the listeners to comment on when they feel the right age to start saving for retirement is. The overwhelming majority answered with right out of college or as soon as possible. All of the information we received was on track with what we expected. It was the next question that worried us and led to the creation of this episode. We posed the question, with a new full-time job, what would you be most likely to do with your money, to our listeners, and were shocked that bank account savings trumped retirement account savings by 32%. People often say that Gen Y, those born after 1980, is ill-prepared to face the future, whether it be our fascination and obsession with new technology or a lack of social skills. We are viewed by older generations as children with technology. I usually tend to dispute these opinions, but in the case of our retirement preparation, it is hard to argue the facts. In our survey, we discovered that Gen Y and a few generations before us are distrusting or not familiar with retirement accounts, and therefore prefer simple bank accounts with minute interest. We want to stress that simple bank accounts are alone not going to last throughout retirement, and therefore are bad retirement plans. They simply don't generate enough capital from interest, and we cannot stress this enough. A recent article in the New York Times by Stephen Ratner, a longtime Wall Street executive, adds numerical values to this lack of preparation. Only 43% of eligible workers under 25 and 62% of those between 25 and 34 participate in 401k plans, compared with 70% or more of those over 45, and the young contribute less. 4.3% of income for those under 25 and 5.5% for ages 25 to 34. In contrast, Americans between 55 and 64 direct 8.7% of their incomes to these plans. These statistics are showing that not only are younger generations lacking in retirement savings, but they are also contributing less than their older counterparts. With all of the tools and methods to initiate a retirement savings account, like a 401k, we urge you as our listeners to take advantage of these opportunities so that you are able to enjoy your retirement and not be worried about what lack of funds you generated from your youth. And for those listeners finishing college or beginning a new career, we urge you to start saving as well. It might seem unnecessary or cumbersome, but it will be vital to your success in your older years. So unless mandated savings become law as we here at Retirement Radio wish they would, I leave you with this quote from clergyman Dwight Moody. Preparation for old age should begin not later than one's teens. A life which is empty of purpose until 65 will not suddenly become filled on retirement. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you join us again next week for another segment of Retirement Radio. From all of us here, good night.